The needle was already in my arm when the alarms started. I did not expect my first visit to an alien medical bay to end with sirens. I was strapped to a scanning table, half naked under a thin silver sheet, while a four-eyed doctor named Vex studied a floating screen full of numbers that made no sense to me. Then his whole body went stiff, and the lights above us flashed a deep red, and somewhere down the corridor something heavy crashed to the floor. My name is Dylan Carter, and 3 weeks earlier, I had volunteered for a simple thing. The Vorthal, a species that had been flying between stars since before humans learned to write, had finally opened contact with Earth. Diplomats needed test subjects for basic checkups, nothing more. Free trip to an orbital station, a scan, a few questions, then home. I needed the money. I said yes without thinking too hard about it. Now I was lying on a cold table, while Vex stared at his own instruments like they had betrayed him. "Your heart," he said, his voice shaking through the translator box on his collar. "It should not do that." "Do what?" I asked. "It restarted itself, on its own, after stopping." I blinked at him. "It didn't stop. I'm right here." For 4 seconds, it stopped. I watched it happen on the monitor. Then it simply began again, without any device, without any command from me. I did not know what to say to that, because as far as I knew, my heart had been beating fine my whole life. Before I could ask him to explain, the sirens cut off, and a calm mechanical voice spoke through the walls in a language I did not understand, followed by a translation. "Emergency containment breach, lower deck. All personnel report to stations." Vex's 4 eyes turned toward the door, then back toward me, then back toward the door. His hands, thin and silver blue, trembled against the edge of my table. "That is not a drill," he whispered. "That alarm has only sounded once before, during the founding war. Something has gotten loose." I sat up, the sheet sliding off my shoulder, my bare feet touching a floor that hummed faintly beneath them. "Loose? Loose how? What kind of something?" He did not answer right away. He tapped at his console, and the screen flickered from my own biological data to a security feed. I saw a long dark hallway, lights strobing red, and something moving through it that looked wrong in a way I could not name at first. It was long-limbed, fast, low to the ground, and it left a trail of scorched metal behind it wherever it touched the walls. "A containment specimen," Vex said. "From the lower research levels. It should never have been able to break its seal." "What is it?" "A predator organism, collected from a world 3 systems from here. It was meant to be studied, not released." His voice cracked. "It should not be able to move that fast. It should not be able to breach reinforced alloy with its limbs alone." The feed showed the creature slam into a door, and the metal buckled inward like paper. I felt my stomach drop. "Where is it heading?" Vex checked another screen, his claws clicking against the glass in quick, panicked taps. "Toward the central corridor, toward the crew quarters. Toward us." I swung my legs off the table, grabbing my clothes from the chair beside me. "Then we need to move." "Move where?" "The escape pods are 2 decks down, past the very corridor it is heading through. The security teams are already engaging it and losing ground with every exchange." I pulled my shirt over my head, my hands shaking more than I wanted to admit. "Then we find another way." Vex looked at me like I had grown a second head. "You are a guest here, a biological subject. You are not equipped for this." "Neither are you, apparently," I said, nodding at the trembling in his hands. "But sitting here waiting for it to find us isn't a plan either." He stared at me for a long moment, his 4 eyes blinking out of sync with each other, something I had noticed happened whenever he was overwhelmed. Then he nodded, sharp and quick, and reached for a case on the wall marked with symbols I could not read. "There is a maintenance shaft," he said, pulling the case open to reveal tools I did not recognize. "It runs beneath the main corridor, used for repairs during travel. It is narrow, and it is dark, but it should not be patrolled by security drones, which means the specimen may not think to search it." "May not," I repeated. "I am a doctor, Dylan Carter, not a soldier. I do not deal in certainties during a crisis. I deal in the best available option." That was fair enough. I finished dressing while he grabbed a small device from the case, something that looked like a flashlight fused with a knife, and clipped it to his belt. Then he moved to the door, pressed his palm against a panel, and the door slid open with a hiss. The corridor outside was empty, but the walls carried a low vibration, like something heavy was moving somewhere close, shaking the whole structure with each step. "This way," Vex said, and we ran. I had never run through a spaceship before. The floor was smooth and slightly curved, built for a different kind of foot than mine, and I nearly slipped twice trying to keep pace with him. Vex moved fast for someone who claimed not to be built for this, his long limbs covering ground in quick, efficient strides, while I struggled to keep up, my lungs already burning. We turned a corner and nearly ran straight into a security officer, another Vorthal, tall and armored, blood, or whatever color their blood was, streaked dark blue across one shoulder plate. He was leaning against the wall, breathing hard, a weapon clutched in one shaking hand. "Vex," the officer gasped. "You should not be out here." "Neither should you. Carr, not injured like that." Vex knelt beside him, pulling a small device from his case and pressing it against the wound. The officer winced, then relaxed slightly, as whatever the device did took effect. "It came out of nowhere," Carr said. "We hit it 3 times with full-charge weapons. It barely slowed. Its hide absorbs the energy somehow, converts it, I do not know. My whole team is behind me, trying to hold the Eastern Junction, but it is only a matter of time before it breaks through." "Where is it now?" I asked. Carr's eyes, all 4 of them, turned toward me with obvious surprise, as if he had only just noticed a human standing in the hallway. "You brought your subject with you?" "He would not stay behind," Vex said simply, which was not exactly true, but I did not correct him. "It is 2 junctions east of here," Carr said, answering my question. "Moving toward the crew quarters. If it reaches the reactor access point beyond that, it could damage the core containment, and then none of us will need to worry about being caught, because there will be nothing left to catch us in." Vex went very still. The reactor is only lightly shielded on that side. It was never meant to withstand an impact like that. "I know," Carr said grimly, "which is why I sent runners to seal the blast doors manually, since the automatic systems failed during the breach. If they do not reach the control junction in time, the doors stay open, and the specimen has a clear path straight to the core." I thought about that for a second, about a reactor core, and a ship full of people, and a creature that shrugged off weapons fire like it was nothing. "How far is the control junction from here?" "Not far," Carr said, "but it lies directly in the specimen's current path." "Then someone needs to get there before it does," I said. Vex looked at me, and something in his expression shifted, calculation replacing panic. "The maintenance shaft," he said slowly. "It runs almost directly beneath the control junction. We could reach it from below, bypass the corridor entirely." Carr shook his head. "That shaft has not been used in years. It may be blocked, or damaged, or simply too narrow to pass through quickly." "We do not have another option," Vex said. "Your team is holding the junction, but they cannot hold it forever, and the runners you sent may not make it in time. This is the fastest way." Carr studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, sharp and final, the way soldiers do when they have decided to trust someone against their better judgment. "Go. I will hold what I can here, and send word if the situation changes." We left him leaning against the wall, weapon raised, watching the corridor behind us, and Vex led me to a narrow hatch set low into the floor, nearly hidden behind a support strut. He knelt, pried it open with the tool from his belt, and cool air rushed up from the darkness below. "After you," he said. I did not love the idea of climbing into an unknown dark shaft on an alien ship while a monster hunted somewhere nearby, but I also did not love the alternative, so I lowered myself through the hatch and dropped onto a narrow walkway a few feet below. Vex followed, sealing the hatch behind us, and the small light on his belt flickered on, casting a thin beam across pipes and cables that ran along the walls in every direction. "This way," he said, pointing down the shaft, and we started moving, hunched low under the ceiling, our footsteps echoing off metal that groaned faintly under distant pressure. "Can I ask you something?" I said, mostly to keep my mind from spiraling into panic. "Now seems like an unusual time for questions. You said my heart stopped for 4 seconds and started again on its own. Does that happen a lot? With humans, I mean?" Vex glanced back at me, his 4 eyes catching the beam of his own light in a way that made them glow faintly. I do not know. You are the first human I have examined. Before today, I assumed all species required intervention to restart cardiac function. Your body did it without instruction, without machinery, entirely on its own initiative. Is that bad? It is remarkable, he said. Frightening, in its own way, but remarkable. It suggests a level of internal resilience I have not encountered before. He paused at a junction in the shaft, checking a small display strapped to his wrist. This way, we are close. We kept moving, faster now, the shaft narrowing until we had to turn sideways in places to fit between pipes. The vibration in the walls grew stronger, a low rhythmic pounding that I could feel in my teeth, and Vex's steps slowed, his breathing growing shallow. It is above us, he whispered. Close, very close. I froze, listening. The pounding stopped, then started again, this time accompanied by a scraping sound, long and slow, like claws dragging across metal directly over our heads. Dust drifted down from the ceiling, catching in the beam of Vex's light. Neither of us moved. I held my breath, watching the ceiling, waiting for it to buckle inward, the way I had seen on the security feed, but after a long, terrible moment, the scraping sound moved on, fading into the distance, and the pounding grew fainter with each step it took. Vex let out a breath through his nose, a sound I had come to recognize as his version of relief. It did not sense us. Good. The shaft must be shielded enough to mask our presence, or it simply was not searching for anything this far below. Let's not test that theory again, I said, and he almost smiled, an expression that looked strange on his silver-blue face, but was unmistakably human in its meaning. We reached the end of the shaft a few minutes later, another hatch set into the ceiling this time, and Vex checked his wrist display again. The control junction should be directly above us. If Car's runners have not arrived yet, we may need to seal the blast doors ourselves. Do you know how? I have seen it done. I have never done it myself. He looked at me, and for the first time since we had met, he looked genuinely afraid, not of the creature hunting the ship, but of failing the people counting on him. I am a doctor, Dylan. I heal wounds. I do not usually stand between danger and disaster. Neither do I said, but here we are anyway. He nodded slowly, then reached up and pried the hatch open. We climbed through into a small control room, banks of unfamiliar equipment lining the walls, screens flickering with data I could not read. It was empty. No runners, no security team, just silence, and the distant pounding of something heavy moving through the ship above us. They have not arrived, Vex said, moving quickly to the main console. The blast doors are still open. I need to find the manual override. I watched him work, his hands moving fast across controls that meant nothing to me, his 4 eyes scanning multiple screens at once, in a way that made my head hurt just watching. Outside, somewhere close, the pounding grew louder again, and this time, it did not fade. It is coming back, I said. I know, Vex said, not looking up. I need another minute. I don't think we have another minute. The wall beside the door dented inward with a metallic groan, and I stumbled back, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Vex's hands moved faster, his composure cracking at the edges, sweat, or whatever the Vorthal equivalent was, beading along his brow ridge. Almost, he muttered. Almost. The wall dented again, deeper this time, and a thin crack of light appeared where metal had begun to give way. I looked around the room for anything at all, that could buy us time, and my eyes landed on a fire suppression panel mounted near the door, its symbols simple enough that even I could guess their meaning. Vex, does this ship use gas suppression for fires? Yes, why? Would it slow that thing down if I triggered it right at the door? He glanced up, understanding flashing across his face. It might disorient it, if only briefly. It is not designed as a weapon, but the discharge is forceful and cold enough to disrupt most biological senses. That's good enough for me. I moved to the panel, found the release mechanism, and waited, watching the door as it buckled further, watching the crack of light widen into a gap, watching a long, dark limb push through and grip the edge of the metal, pulling it apart like it was nothing at all. The creature's head appeared next, and I finally saw it clearly for the first time, low and wide, with too many eyes and a mouth that seemed to unfold in sections, each lined with something sharp and glistening. I slammed my hand against the release. A blast of freezing white gas erupted from the panel, engulfing the doorway, and the creature recoiled with a sound that was somewhere between a screech and a groan, stumbling backward through the gap it had made, momentarily blinded and confused. Now, Vex. Got it. He hit the final control, and behind me, the console let out a sharp chime. Through the gas and the wreckage of the door, I heard the deep grinding sound of the blast doors finally sliding shut somewhere down the corridor, sealing the path to the reactor before the creature could recover enough to push forward again. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The gas cleared slowly, revealing an empty, twisted doorway, the creature gone, retreated back into the corridors it had come from, its path to the reactor now blocked by solid sealed metal. Vex sagged against the console, his four legs trembling beneath him. "We did it," he said, disbelief thick in his voice. "We actually did it." I sat down hard on the floor, my whole body shaking now that the danger had passed, adrenaline draining out of me all at once, and leaving something close to exhaustion in its place. Remind me never to volunteer for a free trip again. Vex let out a sound that might have been a laugh, unfamiliar and rough, but unmistakably genuine. "I owe you a debt, Dylan Carter. Without your idea, without your willingness to act, that creature would have reached the core, and none of what happened after would have mattered." Before I could answer, Carr's voice crackled through a speaker somewhere in the room, tired but steady. "Vex, are you there? We have the specimen contained on the upper deck, sealed behind reinforced barriers. It will not be escaping again." Vex reached over and pressed a control on the console. "We are here, Carr. The blast doors are sealed. The reactor is secure." "Good work," Carr said. "Whoever managed that deserves recognition, once this is all properly reported." Vex glanced at me, something warm passing behind his four eyes. "It was not me alone," he said. "I had help. Human help." There was a pause on the line. Then Carr's voice returned, quieter this time, almost thoughtful. "Then perhaps it is time we started taking our newest guests more seriously." We sat there for a while after that, in the wrecked control room, waiting for someone to come and check on us properly, and I found myself thinking about how strange the whole night had been. I had come to this station for a simple checkup, expecting nothing more than a few uncomfortable questions and a quiet trip home. Instead, I had run through dark maintenance shafts, faced down a creature that shrugged off weapons fire, and helped save a reactor core alongside a doctor who, just hours earlier, had been startled by the simple fact that my heart could restart itself without help. Vex looked at me eventually, his four eyes steady now, the panic long gone from his voice. "For what it is worth," he said, "I believe your species may be more capable than any of us realized, not simply in body, but in how you choose to act when everything is uncertain." I managed a tired smile. "We tend to figure things out as we go." "So I have noticed," he said, and this time, when he almost smiled again, it did not look strange at all. It looked like understanding, the first real understanding between two very different kinds of people who had, for one long and dangerous night, stood together and refused to back down.